Welcome back to the Shut the Hell Up and Sell podcast. It has been rapid fire wisdom, and I got to tell you guys, a really fun experience for me just to sit down and chop it up with some other sales leaders out there that really take pride in what it is that we do and are also evangelizing the profession, helping make me feel just warm and fuzzy all over. So today's guest, I'm really excited to have one because I had the opportunity to hop onto her podcast. I think that was earlier this year. And let me tell you something. We were just vibing. Like, I'm saying stuff, and she's like, yep. And then she's saying stuff, and I'm like, yep. And so I know our philosophies are so just in such terrific alignment. And so I know this is going to be a fun episode and some great wisdom that's going to be shared. Wesleyne, what's going on? How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Well, I am very excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. So that's one thing I also remember with booking the podcast with you. It was like, you're like 3-4 months deep. Like you are on that grind, and which also inspires me. I love being around folks that practice what they preach, man, not just out there trying to tell people how to sell, but we're on that grind. You are on that grind, and it inspires me. So I appreciate that.
Yes. That's one thing that, I pride myself with. Like, I'm booked for 3 months. Like, literally, that is what you should be as a salesperson. Your calendar should be packed.
Yep. So, okay, as we get started, I want to just hop in really quick. And if you could just tell the audience what it is you do.
I am a sales transformation coach and trainer. So we work with organizations and we have a leadership-centric approach to everything training and development. We believe that if leadership is not invested and involved, then no amount of training, no amount of coaching or consulting is ever going to drive change.
Love it. Couldn't agree more. So my next question for you is, now, sometimes folks don't want to date themselves, right? But I want people to date themselves on our podcast because, every year that you've notched on your belt in this game is something that we should be proud of, and we should let everyone know. So I want to know when you started in this sales game. Tell me what year you first started to get a check in sales.
What year did I first start to get a check? So I think about it because my son was 1.5 and he's 14 now. So I would say it's been about 13 years. Yeah.
There we go.
13 years.
Own it. 13.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. So, over your 13-year journey, no doubt you've had mentors, right? You've had people out there that have been important to your journey and have helped to pass along that wisdom. And I think that's one of the things I love about sales is there's that community, right? That community and that mentorship and that wisdom that gets passed down. So I would like to ask you to shout out a unsung hero in your journey. I'm talking about someone that made an impact in your career, made an impact in your life that maybe people just don't know, or they just don't get shine. Maybe it was something little, maybe it was something big, but now's your opportunity to shout them out on this platform.
Yes. A former sales manager of mine, her name is Gina Paroline, and she was I call her the OG woman in sales. She was in sales in the 80s. And so she was such a big proponent and an advocate for equity within the organization, not just for women, but for men, for everyone. She believed that everyone should have a fair chance. And she really taught me how to lead. Not only was she the most amazing salesperson that I've ever had the honor of being mentored by or with, but she taught me what it meant to be a true leader. She taught me what it meant to advocate for your team, whether your managers like it or not. Like, this is what is right to do. So I would say that is the person who has made the biggest impact on my career.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for shouting her out. And I hope that she is listening. Or her friends and family are listening and get to know about the impact that she made in your life. Again, because I really believe that, in order for us to continue to further this industry that I know you and I are industry, but this profession that you and I are so proud of to be a part of, it's going to take some mentorship from veterans like you, right? Continue to pay it forward like the folks that helped us before. All right. So we've knocked out your how long you've been in there. We've knocked out your mentor. Now I want to know what your first sales job was. Tell me about that really quick.
So I am a recovering chemist, as in I worked in a lab making plastics and checking why is this plastic not working. So the very first job that I had was actually selling specialty capital equipment back into the chemical industry, petrochemicals. So I literally sold the instruments I used to use in the lab.
Nice. And what was that like? Was that as your first entrance into sales?
It was, I tell people when I got that job, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to be when I grow up. I love this. I get to use my chemist brain and I get to negotiate and I get to talk about numbers and money. And I'm selling because I mean, the stuff was like $100,000 a piece. So I'm selling like this high ticket stuff. And
Yeah.
I was literally dropped in a territory that had generated I think like $50,000 in the previous 3 years. And within the first 12 months, I did $500,000. I was like,
Wow.
oh, I got this. I love this. Yeah. Yes, it was absolutely phenomenal.
Well, what attracted you to sales? Because you weren't trained to sell. That wasn't clearly you didn't go to school thinking I'm going to be a seller. What attracted you to it?
When I worked in the lab, I worked in a lab called failure analysis. So what that was is the salespeople would go out into the field and they would bring all these broken things back to us to figure out the why. Are we using the wrong plastic? Is it the wrong temperature? Whatever it is. And so I was always curious. And so I'm like, okay, so what was happening? And I got to a point where I was like, I need more human interaction. So I cast a pretty broad net. Like I was like, okay, supply chain, recruiting, sales. And so I had a few different offers, but this sales position, it was so magnetic. I literally applied for the job and had 3 recruiters find me and say, this is a really great fit for you. And I was like, the stars are aligned. This is what I need to be doing. And they were looking for somebody with a technical background with no sales experience. And so it was like, this is perfect. Yeah, that never happens at all, even today. So I was like, this is meant to be.
Wow. Yeah. So my wife has a similar story a little bit. She's in sales now too, which is kind of weird. She's a technical overlay. She also has a background in science and chemistry. She was a chemist for 18 years before making that transition. So it's been fun to watch that for those that aren't in sales, just to see that transition to this world and their understanding of how we operate and how different it is and how much freedom there is, right? Which I'm sure you probably saw that in your transition. You're like, oh my God, like, you mean I get to dictate my day? It's pretty awesome, right?
It is. When I first started working from home, because as a salesperson, I always worked remotely. So I have not worked in the office ever since I've been in sales. And it was so quiet. It was like really creepy. But now, like, I can't even go work in an office because I get so much more done when I am like able to just focus. And for me, I think the biggest thing about a career in sales that I tell any and everyone is it can literally change the trajectory of your life because you work hard, you get compensated for that hard work. You want to put 12 hours in, you want to drive all across your territory, go knock on doors, kiss babies, do whatever you need to do. Your paycheck, the revenue that you generate, the money that you make is directly reflected off of that. There is no other job out there that will allow you to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the closest thing to entrepreneurship you can get out there, folks. All right. So at this point, I want to ask you to share a story with us. For those of you that have read the book or have not read the book, please read the book. Go get the book. It's there. You're going to love it. And if you don't love it, I don't know, man. Your heart must pump Kool-Aid because like, okay, maybe I'm a little biased, but the book is in Shut the Hell Up and Sell. It's really 2 books, right? And the first part of that book is storytelling. And storytelling, I find to be one of the best ways to educate, especially salespeople, because we are ADHD, man, and we are all over the place. So a good story helps us to really understand the subject matter. And so, first part of the book is really sharing stories from my career and to better help people understand my philosophies and why I believe in certain ways. And the second part of the book is the tactical execution part. So, in the um, in the spirit of the book, Wesleyne, I would love it if you could share a story from your career, something that it could be good, bad, anything, but it helped to formulate your philosophy and helped to dictate how you do business to this day.
There was an instance, a time in my career where it was a Sunday and I had to show up at a trade show. I am very, very protective of my time. And so working on the weekends was kind of like my hard no, right? This was a really important show that I had to attend. So I got all my stuff, went, set up, and I was at the show. We were having like a little cocktail hour, happy hour, whatnot. I was at a table with a group of men, and I looked around and I was like, oh, okay, there are no women here. Not unusual. Again, I'm in chemical sales. This is normal, right? So there was a professor from a prominent university at the table, and so he's telling a story. We're all into the story. He gets to a point in his story and he looks directly at me and he said, yeah, back in those days, you would not have been allowed on campus. And I don't know if it's because you're Black or if
Wow.
it's because you're a woman. And the reaction that you had right there, that's literally the reaction that I had. I was like, okay. So I took a few moments and I was like, okay, nice to meet everyone. And I left. And I literally cried all the way home. I was like,
Mm.
I am the number one salesperson. I graduated the top of my class. I'm doing amazing in my career. Like, and I am still like, a person can still look at me and just minimize me to just that. Right.
Hmm.
And so the next day I went back to the conference, even though I was like, I don't want to go back. I'm so done with this. And I did what I tell people now. I took my power back. So I went up to that professor, I confronted him, and I said, so you were telling a story yesterday, and at a point in the story, you made a reference to me. And I said, you should be ashamed of yourself. You have
Mm.
students in your classes that look just like me. And by you saying that, that means you're not giving them an equal opportunity to learn, to show up, to really be at the top of their game. And so you should be ashamed of what you said and those thoughts that you had. And he couldn't even respond. He was like fumbling and bumbling. He was like, and later that week, I got a call from a hiring manager from a CEO that was at the table and watched how I handled myself. And I
Mm.
got a job literally from that experience.
Wow, what a powerful experience. So tell me, what did that teach you in terms of like how did clearly that was a transformative experience, right? But like what did that teach you that it kind of again has formed a philosophy or a way of operating that you maintain to this day?
So, one thing that it taught me is that no matter what you do, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many accolades that you get within your company or externally, people that have biases, just have biases. Everybody's not going to love you, everybody's not going to like you, and that's okay. It
Hmm.
also taught me the importance of speaking up for myself, the
Yeah.
importance of not just rolling over and taking it. And until that point, most of my clients, again, I was in a very technical area. I was selling like capital equipment and specialty chemicals, and most of my clients looked like this professor. And so up to that point, I would shrink a little bit sometimes when I would be in a room and I'd be the only person there that looked like me. I would shrink a little bit,
Mm.
and my confidence would be diminished a little bit. I was like, well, are they going to accept me? Are they not going to accept me? And that experience showed me that I have to accept myself and I have to
Hmm.
show up as this whole person, this big personality that talks a lot, that is very opinionated, and be who I am. And if there's something that I don't like that's happening to me, I need to stand up for it. And also, if
Hmm.
I notice something, an injustice on someone else, say something. Because there were a lot of people at that table, and somebody could have been like, hey, dude, like, You think that's okay?
Yeah.
No one said anything, right? So it's not okay to be a bystander, and it's not okay to not stand up for people.
Wow, I love that. And something else that I pulled out of that is just the value of conflict. And you know, oftentimes in sales and business, we're like conflict averse. We're passive, right? And even with customers, and I've seen that same sort of approach in dealing with customers to be very successful. Like, go towards the elephant in the room, go towards the conflict. And when you look at relationship building in general, like, you build your strongest relationships with people where there's been some conflict. You didn't run from it. You went at it. Now, this one, I'm sure you guys aren't, swapping birthday and Christmas cards, but you absolutely got benefit out of that experience. Anything else you want to
Absolutely.
share about that?
And I would say that experience really shapes the way that I work with clients and organizations. Because I recently had a client that we did kind of like a end of our term debrief, and they said, I really enjoy working with you because you say the things that nobody else will say, and you really deliver. You tell me what it is, and so literally that unlocked that part of me that I was like keeping a little bit quiet, but it has served me well. It has paid my bills. And it is what continues to help me today. And so as a woman in sales, as a person of color in sales, I always tell people that it is important to be who you are. Like, don't shy away from that. That thing that people have always said is not good, or be quiet, stay in the back, don't do this. That's what's going to make you really good at sales. Like, that thing
Wow.
is what's going to get you there.
Wow. Let's, if I could take your words and put them on the screen right now and underline them, I would do that right now. Like, one thing that I don't want to get missed in this is you said for women and people of color, because, you know, as a woman, as a person of color in sales, you stand out. It is what it is, right? Because you're a minority in that world. And oftentimes, those of us that stand out, we want to shrink back. We don't, because we already stand out. So we just want to fit in. And what you're saying is embrace that, embrace it. Let your personality show. And I would agree with that. Fantastic advice. And thank you for sharing that story. Okay. So here we come to our next part now, where we get tactical, we get X's and O's, we get, do this, ABC, 1, 2, 3. And I know you're excellent at this. So if you could share a piece of direction, advice, something that a seller or a sales leader listening to this podcast right now can take from this and start to apply to their business and see some success.
So I'm going to take the title of the podcast and the book, and I'm going to change it just a little bit. I'm going to say,
Oh, no. We don't. Well, hold on.
You know what? Stick with me. Stick with me.
Okay. I'm following.
So, what I'm going to say to sales leaders, business owners, managers is shut the hell up and listen, right? Because so many times as leaders, we think that we need to talk. We need to be the big personality in the room. We need to be the one that knows all the answers. And you are doing a disservice. This is a term that I've coined. I call this sales malpractice and leadership malpractice. So as a leader, one thing that I want to tell you is you should never, ever, ever be going on a call, a meeting, anything alone. Always take a salesperson with you and allow them to lead the discussion. Allow them to really show up and show how they have grown, how they can take command of a situation. And your job is to listen and coach them up. So stop trying to do their job for them. Stop trying to be the big personality, the person who gets all the accolades. As a sales leader, you want your people to exceed what you have done. Your people should be shining and you should be diminishing.
Love that. Why do you think that's important?
It is important because so many times what sales leaders are doing is they're doing the jobs of their team. They're not developing the people on the team and empowering them to do the work they need to do. And they're only focusing on the top performers, the 1 or 2, the top 20%. That's all they're focusing on. And if you don't, and I love to use, sports analogies, right? How often do you see the coach of your favorite team taking off their headset, their suit coat, and going and running a play? Like, how often does that happen? Never. And as a sales manager, that is your job, is to be a coach on the sideline, directing the plays, helping everybody on the team do the things that they need to do. And again, if you talk too much, you're not listening and helping them where they are, not trying to coach them all the way up, but focus on where they are, one step at a time. It's one little nugget at a time.
I think that's terrific advice. This is something that you and I had talked about a little bit before, and that is the transition of going from me to we, right? And that's something a lot of sellers struggle with, because the path to becoming a sales leader is being a really great salesperson, a really great individual contributor, a really great lone wolf, and then you get put into a role where it's like, okay, go help other people succeed. And sometimes the only way that a seller knows how to succeed is by them driving the business and driving the revenue. But to your point, until they really invest in helping their team grow and making them successful as individuals, they'll never reach their potential. They'll just be working way harder and not getting the results that they want from their team. Fantastic advice. Anything else that you'd like to add to that?
I would also like to let leaders know, if the way that you know that you need help or that you're doing it the wrong way is if you're working way too much. I was talking to a new client recently, and he's like, yeah, so I'm in the office, 7 to 5, and then I have kids. So from 5 to 8, I'm dad. And then I start working again from 8 to 10. And I said, then when do you spend time with your wife? And he just got quiet. And he was like, well, and I'm like, and what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? So if your work-life balance is completely flipped upside down, and as a sales manager, you're not getting compensated the same way you were as a salesperson. So all those extra hours you're putting in, they're really just causing you frustration, no more money, just more stress. So think about what you want your life to look like. How do you want to show up personally as well as professionally? Do you want to be working 70, 80 hours a week, still stressed out and not hitting your quota? The only way that you can change that is by showing up as a true sales leader and sales coach.
How about this? How about maybe you don't want to be a sales leader? How about that? A lot of times we think that's what we want, but if you're using this great wisdom that Wesleyne is sharing with us, and you're focusing on your quality of life, you're focusing on you're working from the outcomes and reverse engineering, then you can make a better decision. Because a lot of folks that are great individual contributors they're not up for sales leadership. I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, that doesn't mean you're any less of a person. It just doesn't fit who you are, what you want for yourself and your life. But sometimes you get pushed into that because you're a successful sales leader. So I would say use this wisdom that you were just told here, and maybe decide if it's the best fit for you, and push back if it isn't. All right. This has been fantastic. I could sit and chat with you all day, because sometimes it's like talking to myself, because but I love it. a better looking version of myself, but myself nonetheless, and a female version. But okay, if you could share, how can people reach out to you? How can they work with you? What's the best way for them to contact you?
The best way would be via LinkedIn. I'm there just at Wesleyne. I post daily content that is just as direct as what you heard on this podcast. And so connect with me there. Let me know that you heard me on the podcast.
Awesome. And of course, we'll have all of Wesleyne's information in the show notes and all that good stuff, but make sure that you reach out to her. She is a dynamic sales leader, great coach, great trainer, and someone you need to absolutely have in your corner. Wesleyne, it's been awesome to speak with you again. Again, wish you continued success. And to all of our sellers and leaders out there, thank you for honoring us with your time today. And remember, say less, sell more. Hey guys, it's Ronell, and I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode of the Shut the Hell Up and Sell podcast. If you liked it, please rate us 5 stars on whichever podcasting platform you're listening to this on. And while you're at it, punch that subscribe button. That way you get notified every time we drop a brand new episode. Hey, I'd also appreciate it if you went to our website, shutthehellupandsell.com, and became a member. It's absolutely free, and you'll have the opportunity to listen to previous episodes of our podcast, check out some of our free courses, get a copy of the book, and we'll send you sales tips and motivational nuggets from time to time. Lastly, if you'd like to book me for either appearances or speaking engagements, just send an email to my team at team@shutthehellupandsell.com.